C.S. Lewis quote states that Jesus either had to be a liar, a lunatic, or a Lord. Scholar Bart Ehrman introduces the idea that Jesus could have been a legend. So, was Jesus God? A legend is a traditional story popularly regarded as historical, passed down from generation to generation. This is the way that Ehrman believes that the historical Jesus became the legendary God status. Ehrman believes that historical Jesus was a good teacher who, over time, was elevated by his followers to Lord, and then, finally, believed to be God. However, the status as lordship was tainted by information of the time as well as biases. Ehrman's view of how the historical Jesus was elevated to God is not quite correct. According to New Testament text, Jesus had a following before his death, which is evidenced by texts such as Matthew and Mark, showing how Jesus accepts worship. Worship not simply ascribed to a good teacher, but something greater, someone divine. After Jesus' death, there is record of people worshiping him as quickly as 50 AD, only 20 years after his death, which is shown by the uprising that Paul, or Saul, fought against. Such a short period of time does not allow for the evolutionary process of stages of an idea. Although the idea of Jesus as God did spread, this spread was a geographic one, not an ideological one. This is seen by the uses of terms such as Maranatha, an Aramaic term used in Greek-speaking Corinth as early as 50 AD. These patterns of worship, consistent throughout the ages, still spreading to nations, show how Jesus was not elevated to the legendary God figure, but was always worshipped as a Lord.
The Jews were so preoccupied with keeping the law that they would not ascribe worship to a man who was not God. We look to the HANDS acronym to see how Jesus shares in the honor, attributes, names, deeds, and seat of God, which answers why Jesus also shares in the worship of God. Honor, Jesus is the primary object of faith. Attributes, Jesus doesn't just resemble God, he is God and existed as long as God has existed. Names, titles, responsibility, and authority, and names, identity. Deeds, Jesus does the work of the Father, past, present, and future. Seat, Jesus is exalted with God and claims the authority of this kingdom.
Ehrman claims that aside from the Gospel of John, Jesus doesn't identify himself as being God. However, there are many explicit and implicit Christological claims to deity found in the Synoptic Gospels. Implicitly, Jesus understands himself as the eschatological goal of the Old Testament, ultimately one in whom all God's plans and promises are realized. Thus, he is the Old Testament's sole authoritative interpreter. Jesus understands himself as having the authority of God and thus is identified with him. We also see Jesus' deity in the miracles he performed. Ehrman argues that Jesus' miracles should not be regarded as the works of God because of the commonness of miracle doers in the day. The miracles that Jesus performed are not just merely evidence of a spirit-empowered individual who acts on behalf of God. Rather, all Jesus' miracles are set within a larger context of the inauguration of the age to come. For example, his authority over nature, authority to forgive sins, and the like reminds his followers of the Old Testament references they already knew. Jesus many times identifies himself as the Son of God in the Synoptic Gospels and describes his unique relationship with the Father. A good example is found in Matthew 11. Jesus claims, "No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son." Here we discover how Jesus understands his relation to the Father, a relation that can only be understood as a claim of deity. The Father-Son relationship is spoken of in terms of exclusive mutual knowledge that each has of the other, and as an absolute reciprocity and interpenetration of knowledge with the Father. Also a mutual sovereignty whereby both the Father and the Son must take the initiative to reveal each other. So all this to say, is Jesus really Lord and not a legend? And the answer is yes.